right. So final question. And we're on pace, actually.
Look at this.
So look at this. My question is about the part where you, in this sense, breezed over all the tragedies in the past week at the beginning of the church service and called Charlie Kirk a political commentator instead of diving into how ugly this was and helping us process healing. And I think that that's maybe the crux of this question is this, like, it felt so big. The time that we spent wasn't enough time to heal. Yeah. So hopefully you can dig into it more in the Red Couch Theology, which we had planned to. And I feel like maybe you wanted to play it safe or something. I just sort of curiosity around how it was handled. And it felt lighter than the emotion was for some folks in the room.
Yeah. This is a,
even the language of, like, was he a martyr? Was he not? He was his family. He was a man of faith. Yeah.
Yeah. So these ones are always super, I think, hard to know. Like I actually think we were hit as people, as a community with actually 3 tragedies in a short space of time. Like, and sometimes tragedies is huge and abstract. Like you pick up a newspaper or you go online and you see 200,000 people died in an earthquake in Nepal or India or some country far from here geographically, and you feel like you're supposed to feel something about it, and you actually are unequipped to really feel it because it's very distant to you. And then you have 3 things that, depending on who you are, like really affect you deeply. A young lady, Irina Zarutska, immigrant from Ukraine, come escaping war, and then she's killed, like, brutally on a train. And for some people, that's the big story. Yeah. And then you've got another school shooting in Colorado, 13 in
25 minutes from here.
Yeah, and 25 minutes from here, with people in our community that have and do live in that area. Like, we have some friends that they're right in that space. Their kids happen to go to our kids' school, but it's right there. And so we were actually having a conversation with a guy before the service who kind of tongue-in-cheek said, like, are you going to talk about banning assault weapons? Because, like, he's lived in that environment and, So you got tons of teachers in a place like South who, like, maybe come in with that on their mind. Like, that's the lead
the school
story.
Shooting. Yep.
Yeah. Like, this has happened again. We've got families that went through STEM, the shooting there in Highlands Ranch. Like, this is, like, come so close to our community over the years. And then you've got Charlie Kirk, who is this figure that, especially if you love online videos, is larger than life. And actually, I actually said to someone, I didn't plan to call him a political commentator. I actually had not written anything at all. And then suddenly had this moment on stage where I'm like, there's probably some people here who don't even know who he is. Like, there's some people that are not online people, that are not.
Yes, I know several of them where they're like, what happened and who is this guy?
Yeah. So like this, you're suddenly aware, like, oh man, I've got to really quickly tell people, like, this is a story. All of the time while doing that, you're aware that there's all sorts of people that want one story maybe to be the lead story. And then also, if you don't point people to Jesus as a pastor, you've really failed in the moment.
Yeah. Like,
if you can't move people to, and our only hope is in Jesus, like, what do you do? Like actually the challenge is, this is a worship service, like, and I actually love that there's people that are finding ways to grieve well over some of these horrific things, but we're in a worship service where you're trying to keep Jesus the lead story when it'd be really easy to look at some other things. So I actually felt like I spent as much energy, like space and time, thinking through what to say about what's going on in the world as the sermon this week, because it feels like it's a felt need, understandably. Like and all three of them just like,
when the emotions raw, it feels like a gaping wound, and just like, are we going to talk about the gaping wound in our soul?
All three of them are just horrific as well, aren't they? They're like, all three of them are things that I would hope everyone in the South, like regardless of where they are, like from a ethnic background or from a like political stance, would be able to look at and say, these are just like
deeply troubling.
These are just deeply troubling. And I think actually I'd want to say, if you feel one story is bigger than the others, that's actually fine. Like that there's no judgment on that. You connect with the story that you connect with.
Yeah.
And I actually, like, for me, like I really felt like all of them hit me on like a wave level.
Yeah.
You know, you kind of like, I actually was really connected to the Arena story, because as an immigrant coming to a different country, and like how young she was, and like just it was all on all the news videos and everything, and just the loneliness of it. She has this moment where she's just left on a train and everyone just walks off.
Yeah.
Like, and you watch it and you're like, what the hell is wrong with people? Like, you just see something like this and you just leave.
Yeah.
So that story, like I actually spent a lot of time just almost like, what is wrong with this world? Like, what's wrong with the psyche of people?
Yeah. Like, so just to interject my emotion around it, actually the Charlie Kirk one maybe hit me the most, but I actually had almost some guilt about that.
Yeah.
And I started asking myself, well, like, has there been that many school shootings that it's starting to just become like par for the course, that my emotions can't like rise to the occasion anymore to like meet that travesty where it should. And I do, full confession, watch a lot of YouTube videos, and have spent quite a bit of time listening to him debate folks and stuff like that. So it's just like, I have a stronger face recognition, ideology recognition, whatever, with this particular character. And so I was actually like caught in the middle of like, I felt it more immediately about Charlie Kirk, but I felt like I should feel more about the shooting. So I was like, now I'm afraid that I'm misfeeling things.
So I think in the end, like, so I had that first story, and that really, it really just hit me hard for some reason. I couldn't, you know, and obviously she's a young, like, beautiful woman as well. So actually people talk about that. Like, there's something about beauty that's like almost sad. And so you almost feel like, which isn't a value on people. It's just actually something we talked about philosophically. Like, when you see something like that removed from the world, there's almost like a, you know, like a loss to it. And then with the school shooting, there's this immediate sense of like, you know, this is happening right now. It's right down the road. It's like, you and I both have school age kids. Yeah. And you actually at times start to feel like, are we just like playing a lottery? Of like, it's just like, you know, like, hey, I guess your odds are okay. Like, is that what you? We
dodged another one.
Yeah. And then there's other people that are right. I mean, one of the kids is still in hospital right now. And then there's people in the community that you know that are tied to the others. Like, there's a trauma every time this comes on the news. I was just, I think I said in the time I spent, like, I was just chatting to someone from Columbine the other day who was there, and just like, as soon as she says it, you can see just her face just almost drops.
It's a part of who she is now.
Still in that story, and it's 25 years old. And then when it got to like, I actually happened to be at home working when they announced that Charlie Kirk had been shot. And I actually, that actually, like, story for me hit really deep. Like, to the point of like, just like a lot of prayer, like joining a lot of people in prayer in the moments after that, before they announced that he died. like, and that story I carried really deeply in a way that I don't know if I would say it surprised me. I'd watched a fair amount of his videos online, and I, like with everyone with me, there was stuff he said that I really agreed with and stuff he said that I didn't agree with, but that's like every person who's ever lived except Jesus. And with
actually, even Jesus, I've had times where I struggled, but yes, I shouldn't.
And with Jesus, like my tension has been, well, I disagree, but I'm going to accept that I'm almost certainly wrong.
Yeah.
So I definitely stuff that I thought was brilliant, and I valued and almost actually envied some of his courage.
Yeah.
And his like willingness to carry a debate, and then also like stylistically felt like, oh, we're actually polar opposites. Like for me, like there's a gentleness to like how I approach conversations and a posture. And so like I didn't connect with the style, which
more the tone of voice,
because he's so obviously just brilliant in his recall and his mastering of debate. So I'd watch, but actually like, and I think this is just the human level, actually just connected with a young person, or relatively young adult of faith, with young kids and a wife doing something really publicly.
Yeah.
And then like the fallout of that, of like this, not only shouldn't this happen in a country that's healthy, where you can't hold like well-reasoned, safe debate, where no one's forcing people to come and have a conversation. Like that's, and any of us that have debated with someone who's smarter than us know how deeply frustrating that is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a horrific experience in some ways.
I do it every single Thursday at 11 a.m.
And so you kind of like, not only should this not happen, but it's actually not even just the like the world has lost a light thing that the thing other people carry, and I really get that. But for me, like a wife lost her husband, kids lost a father.
Yeah, and I think that's also the weird human psychology that is totally understandable.
Yeah, like
you have a face and a name and an encounter with like more of a humanized personality that anchored all the tragedies that we've mentioned into an actual person. So I think it almost like the emotion can kind of consolidate on him.
Yeah.
And rightfully so, because it was a face you recognized and a story and a knowledge of the family situation that allows you to then feel all the travesties consolidated into a narrative. And I think the other component of this conversation that I think is hard to address in a service and efficiently is the surge of angst and anger on the political parties that associate specifically with Charlie Kirk. Because you see on one side of the aisle, on one extreme side of the aisle, you see a whole bunch of people like celebrating. Yeah. We took him out. And that feels so gross.
Yeah.
That you're just like, what is our world? Almost in the same sense that you felt with the immigrant, what's her name again?
Irina.
Irina. So like the fact that a whole bunch of people could just like walk off and leave this like solitude travesty sitting there on a train. It's like, what is our world?
Yeah.
And then on the other side of the aisle, you have folks saying like, see, we've lost this like great voice for our community. And this is just proof that we should basically snuff out the other side fully, basically retaliate like blow for blow, not like the eye for eye, tooth for tooth kind of mentality, which also doesn't feel like the way of Jesus. That is like, I choose to be killed and murdered on a cross, to die for my enemies, not to kill my enemies. So and both feel really, really confusing and toxic and emotional and all of this stuff. And you're just like, wow, it's just a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot to feel.
It always reminds me of that phrase. I'm trying to remember who the author was, like man's inhumanity to man. Like that is uniquely a human thing. Like the delight in the suffering of another person.
Yeah.
And you see that in this instance. You see it when there's the brutal removal of immigrants, even if it's legally like a right thing to do.
Yes.
And there's people that are going about a hard task that they feel like called to do. Like, again, not trying to wade into that political minefield, but the delight in the suffering of people, the delight in like, oh, justice is come. And that feels so like, actually, like, that's not who we're called to be as humans. Like the way of Jesus is categorically the love of an enemy. Yes. Like that is the most groundbreaking thing that he says. If you like Jesus, then the hard thing you're asked to wrestle with is love your enemy. And
that means your political enemy.
Yes. And no, like, well, it was deserved thing. Or they had it coming thing. Justify. There's no level it can get to according to Jesus. Like if Jesus can love his enemies in the midst of the single worst thing that's ever happened in the history of the world, which is the crucifixion of the Son of God.
Yeah.
If he can do that in that, then that's our call, even when it's stupidly hard. And that has been the most transforming thing in our world.
Yes.
Like the author Malcolm Gladwell talks about how the thing that brought him back to his childhood faith was he went to interview a couple in Canada whose son had been murdered. And he went to them, the couple went to the man in the courtroom and hugged him and said, "We love you. Our prayers are for you." And he couldn't believe that anybody could do this.
Yes.
He said, "There's no natural explanation in my mind. There has to be a spiritual power that is enabling these people to do what they're doing."
Yeah. Yeah. And you get the impression that, and maybe this is like, from God's perspective, you get the impression that if Jesus were to weigh in on all these travesties, he would be able to, with genuine, from the bottom of his heart, empathize with the left, with the right, with all those involved, and see right past the brokenness to the actual humanity behind it, and then embrace with love,
and this is the interesting thing, because I agree with you. Like the only thing I would say in that is that, and I don't think this is what you were saying, but I just worry it's what people might hear.
Yeah,
I don't think Jesus empathizes ever with political groups. I don't think he empathizes with with structures and things. He empathizes with people.
With people,
like individual people, like you. With
the ones hurting on the left,
totally,
and the ones hurting on the right.
I totally agree, but I just like I don't think it's an empathization with like the any philosophy. Like all philosophies must bow to Jesus. Yeah, is constantly what we hear.
King of Kings, Lord of Lords, His kingdom, no others.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so, like. I think he empathizes with people in their anger over these situations. The person who looks at an immigrant from another country and says, "This, like, how can this happen?" and feels that anger at, maybe the failure of courts or the brokenness of humanity, all of those different things. The person who looks at another school shooting and says, "What is wrong with us as a country that we haven't done something to stop these things happening?" Whatever it takes.
Yeah.
And the person who looks at Charlie Kirk and says, like, this needs vengeance. He understands, I think, the emotion. Yeah. And he's with you in those feelings, but he constantly points us towards his kingdom. And that has never felt fair. It doesn't feel fair that Stephen, like a young man following Jesus, is stoned to death.
Yep.
It feels like there should be vengeance. And the early church practiced love of enemy to the point that the person who was most involved in it, they welcomed into their fold.
Yeah.
And became one of the greatest leaders ever.
Yeah.
It has never felt fair, but it's not. Well, it's not fair.
Yeah.
It's not fair. But the grace of God is not fair.
Yeah.
So
well, there you have it. I feel like anything, any treatment of, so here's the reality when travesty hits, especially when they're layered, like you said, a wave, it's like, okay, one wave hits you and then another one hits you and then another one hits you. It's like the meter on the car that's just redlining emotionally. It feels like talking about it is never going to be sufficient. It's just some time, the Spirit of God, the kindness of Jesus, though some sort of combination of all those things are the things that bring healing. Because no matter what you and I say on a podcast, it's not going to feel like it's enough. I feel like that's just
I agree with that, and I the person that sent the question in, we've talked like one-to-one, and we talked about like the feeling, and I understand this, that it might feel like the easy way out. Actually, what I said is, to me, it's the opposite of the easy way out. Like the easiest thing you can do is just have a church that just says, this is the thing that you all must be worried about, and speak only to that. To pick one. And to say, we're just going to lean into that. Or to pick a political side and say, we're just going to lean into that.
And those who don't like it won't stay, and the ones who do will consolidate around it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's far harder to just point people to Jesus in the midst of three equally horrific things. And say, in the midst of all our combined grieving, we're going to try to turn our eyes towards Jesus. I actually think that's the hard way out, not the easy way out. But I also could be wrong on that.
Yeah, and so a moment in the service that I didn't like. This is like a beautiful thing about how the Spirit works. But this was comforting to me in all of this. You hadn't decided. You told me early in the week that you would maybe say something, but you didn't know what to say yet, and that you were processing. So I had a prayer planned for the service, just a normal service. And then you came up to me on Sunday and you said, like, I spent a significant chunk of time thinking and processing, praying, and I've written up a thing. Let's move that prayer out for this week. And can I have that space? So that means the songs that I chose were connected to either this prayer or to your sermon. Yeah. They weren't connected to the thing. And then I felt like in God's wisdom and kindness, and knowing in advance what he was going to speak to you, and in planning the set list, right after you shared this stuff, it felt so right to sing the words of Good Grace. People come together, strangest neighbors, your blood is one, children of generations, every nation of kingdom come. Don't let your heart be troubled. Hold your head up high. Don't fear no evil. Fix your eyes on this one thing, truth. God is madly in love with you. Take courage, hold on, be strong. Remember where your help comes from. Jesus, our redemption, our salvation is his blood. Like, that was so moving to sing that with my church family after you sharing this. And know out there, like, if you're a member of South, we as South leaders are going to try. And if this ever isn't true anymore, you have my full permission to depart South. But we're going to try our best to make sure that Jesus is the lead story in every single service as much as we can, without also ignoring the travesties of the world, because the gospel is more beautiful when we see Jesus meeting those.
Well, this, and I think I would add, I am pretty convinced that when you think of like how politics affects how you see things, that the spectrum of politics is not a line, it's a horseshoe.
Yeah.
Like I actually think the extremes of the left and right have more in common with each other than almost everybody else.
Yeah, if you want that unpacked fully, there's another podcast called This Cultural Moment that kind of uses that, unpacks that fully.
Which has been, so it's a horseshoe, like the 2 points almost meet at the end. And yet, Jesus took people from the very extremes of the horseshoe of his day and brought them together as his followers, which speaks to the pull of Jesus, the magnetic pull of Jesus that says wherever you might be, he can lead you in making his kingdom the only thing that really matters. That in this world you will have sorrow, but take heart, he has overcome the world. And so whatever you're feeling right now, I think that's his invitation. I think we should definitely end with prayer.
Yeah.
In the midst of the grief. And maybe we'll end up splitting this part of the episode from the other part. I don't know.
Yeah.
So that it's easily accessible.
Yeah.
But that's what we've got in a week that I think you're always, the hardest funerals for me to do are ones that are personally full of grief.
Yeah.
Actually, the weeks where the times where I've done funerals where I don't know the person, I can actually function as primarily a carer to other people.
Yeah.
And you're actually somewhat detached from it. But when you end up doing funerals where you're like, I am so involved in this thing.
Yeah.
This thing,
it's hard to be a comforter.
One of my first funerals I did was my grandmother. And you feel that deeply. So when you're a church pastor in these weeks like this, where you've had three things that grab at your heart in different ways, and you're trying at the same time to care for the people, that's not an easy thing to do. And so I don't say that saying, hey, you should really feel really sorry for me. It's just a reminder that when you see someone trying to navigate those things, you're also watching a person also trying to navigate for themselves too.
Yeah.
And so if you imagine with all your different emotions, what it would be like to try and do that, like, I think you start to see some of the challenge.
Yep.
Because I think people think if I got up there, it would be really easy to say what I felt, but you're not up there.
Yeah.
So I think it's harder to navigate those things than it seems, I think.
Yeah. Well, let's pray.
Jesus, we are a grieving people. It's like so often in this life, maybe there's something personally in this season that's different to all these things that is the lead story for some of our listeners. A loved one who's going through some deep traumatic sicknesses. And we're getting ready to say some goodbyes that are very close and very personal. In some ways bigger than these stories that we've talked about, because you're in it in this deep personal relationship. Think of those people that we know in our community who have loved ones that are sick and in pain. And we ask that you would be with them. Think about those people in our community and listeners that there's a lead story here this week that just stands out from the others. And you know their frustration and angst. And you're with them, you care for them. You feel those feelings with them.
Yes.
And yet, we're also just deeply aware that your purpose in our grief is not to lead us into anger and to hate, but is to lead us deeper in the way of Jesus, which is most exemplified by your surprising and earth-shattering command to love our enemies. That feels like it's out of reach a lot of the time. And yet it's what your people look like. And so in the times where we feel like we can't do that anymore, help us to believe what you say, to trust that you are potentially a fair bit wiser than us, and to obey your call. I pray for us each in our grief, that you would bring healing to our hearts and to our country. Amen.
Amen. All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Send your questions. This actually makes the show what it was meant to be.
Yeah, imagine that.
Appreciate it. Bye.